Ladies and gentlemen, attention, please. Great, thank you, everyone, and thank you for attending the PPM this evening on the Solterre development that is being proposed, as well as rezoning and variances that are before council tonight. So tonight, what our goal is, and understanding this, is we are going to be recording this audio purpose as it was proposed in the notices that went out to the public and in the newspapers. This will be posted to YouTube as audio. Going forward, we are changing the policies and procedures as it comes to PPMs, council meetings, and all the way through for how information is recorded and publicly participated in. So our goal is to create a safe environment for where people can voice their opinions, concerns, or supports for any development or any project we are facing within this community. So that's why we're changing the format of this tonight, and that we're making it more of a, you are talking to staff, not to council, not to developers. The opportunity is you're speaking to us so we can gather and collect the information, so we can evaluate and provide it to council so they have an educated and equal opportunity to understand the public's concerns, as well as what supports. And then from our staff point, how we can educate council on the processes within our bylaws and the planning in general. So the goal tonight is to hear your thoughts and your answers and questions, not necessarily to get into debate. Everyone will have a chance to speak one at a time at this desk. All comments will be recorded and summarized and provided to council to help their decision-making processes. We want this to be a respectful process and comfortable process. So we request that you please wait your turn until your name is called. We understand that several people may have signed up on the sheets here that may not want to speak tonight. So as we go through the names, if you choose not to speak tonight, you still have the opportunity to supply any of your comments in writing to staff here at the town so that we can evaluate that. With any of this, our goal is not to be disruptive tonight, so I would request decorum in the audience here that as people are speaking, no matter what their opinion is, if you can please remain quiet so we get this accurately recorded, and in fairness to every and each person that's here tonight. And thank you for all in attendance. So the meeting flow will go as follows. We're going to start with a short overview of just what is being requested to council. The applicant will actually make a presentation. They'll have up to 20 minutes. We will be recording and timing that, so please keep within that scope. Then each person who wishes to will have up to 5 minutes to sit here and speak to us as to what your concerns, likes, dislikes, or any topic that you want within this. But understand the scope of what is being presented to council is what council will have to focus on in their discussions. So there are outliers here that do have variances within this process, but what is being talked about tonight is the rezonings and the variances being requested. Towards the end, we'll give a couple of minutes for any clarifying questions that the developer would like to provide. And for any of those that wish to speak, we will leave that open to you at that point, but we will wrap it up at that and we will end the meeting. So for tonight, what is being requested by Solterre Development is that the applicant has proposed a use rezoning for both parcels in question, go from mixed use commercial to general commercial. This would remove the limitations of prohibiting dwelling units within 50 feet of the front lot line. The second part of the rezoning request is a form zone change for the lot closer to Falkland and Old Town / Newtown to Marine Form Zone, which would ease the limitations for setbacks at the lot line. So overall, the specific changes requested for this project relate to building setbacks and the ability to have residential units throughout the ground level. At this time, I'd ask Ms. Jennifer Corson to the podium to conduct your presentation. Good. That's actually probably a good way to start. So I am Paul Knopper, the Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Lunenburg.
I'm Mark Kiley, Director of Community Development with the town of Lunenburg.
Ms. Corson, your time starts now.
20 minutes. Thank you. I'll keep my eye on the clock and try to be efficient. Thank you very much for everyone in attendance. This just shows such support and interest in the topic of housing in Lunenburg, and I'm very appreciative of your time tonight. My name is Jennifer Corson. Wear a couple of hats. I'm the senior architect and part owner of Solterre Design, an architecture firm, but I'm standing here as co-owner of Solterre Inc., which is the developer proposing this project. Thank you for hosting this PPM, and we appreciate that it exists as a forum for the community to participate. Many of you have seen these slides before, whether it have been on the YouTube link from our planning advisory presentation. We've been at this process for over 1.5 years with the town, but I do have updates on how these current zoning changes that Paul outlined affect our project specifically, because there's been some misunderstanding about the zoning amendment requests, and also to include highlights about our recent survey. Our proposal for Falkland and Brook, as most know, is a 50-unit long-term rental project of an affordable housing development. It will be on the site of the former Lunenburg Foundry parking lot, originally meant for foundry workers, which was behind a house facing Falkland, which has some orange dots there on the upper left of the photo. Next slide, please, Jamie. Solterre initiated a survey recently to gauge the interest, need, and concerns about the need for housing in the town of Lunenburg. The reason for the survey is that the last time the town reached out to the public for input on housing was in 2021, and that data resulted in a report that was issued in 2023. And those three large numbers across the top states from that report that there's a shortfall in 2022 of 65 units at that point, with 23% saying that they have considered leaving the community, and that there will be a need for 120 units by 2027. So that in 2023, which with data from 2021, we know that these are probably very conservative numbers as they were pre-COVID era, and we know the increase in the pressure on housing that happened during COVID. We had a great response of 167 people. And interestingly, the age ranges you can see on that middle pie chart were almost in equal thirds. A third of the respondents, being about 55 people in each group, were between the ages of 25 to 44, a third in that 45 to 64, and a third being 65 plus. And why this is important, and we'd feel off the mark if our demographic didn't include that 65 plus. And we'd feel off the mark if we didn't have input from the other two age groups. So this is, we were very pleased with that response. And we're not surprised that all of us know that there's a need for housing. We had an 86% response rate about the question about the need for housing in general. Not necessarily the direct support for our project in specific, but the question was supportive for the need for new housing. 86% said very supportive, another 7% were somewhat supportive. We're in the 90% range. We know that we're on track with an affordable housing project. Next slide, please. Well, we see that just under 40% of the respondents, if you look at the bar chart on the left, own a house or own their property in the town of Lunenburg. More importantly for us is that that demographic is not who we're trying to design this project for. It's for the two factors, or the two groups circled in the red, which accumulates to 54% of the surveyed group, which are those who currently rent in the town of Lunenburg, and those who live in modal. Our mistake on this question was that we didn't break down the, do you rent in modal or do you own in modal? Because we could take the portion of, do you rent in modal and do you rent in the town? And this is, again, even more closely focusing in on the demographic of who a project like ours is intended to cater to. There's been some criticism about too many people from outside, or that are influencing the survey. We had less than 10%. I think it was about 7% are from elsewhere. So we're not. I'm happy to note that that was not influencing the survey greatly. The most important response of the survey is the bar chart on the right. Circled in red is our demographic, grouped as the self-stated as underhoused, overhoused, temporarily housed, or other. This adds up to 25% of those 160 odd people who responded to the survey. That means about 40 people. 40 people who are our demographic. We're proposing 50 units, knowing that this survey only reached a fraction of those in similar housing situations and one that we're trying to cater to. While we had a lot of responses from the adequately housed, which is truly a privileged position to be in, this project is not attempting to serve them, me being one of them. We're here to serve the teacher's aide at Blue Nose Academy and her roommate, a working waterfront craftsperson and who is a seasonal restaurant worker, who can save towards potential ownership of their first house rather than spend it on car payments. We're here to serve the newly arrived young couple and their infant coming into Lunenburg to work at Harborview Haven or the hospital to help our local services who can't afford rent and a car. And we're here to serve that senior who has recently lost their spouse, who doesn't want to drive anymore, who has some mobility issues, and who is lonely from not getting out often enough because this is not a very accessible town. That's our demographic. Next slide, please. While we're pleased to see that all of these interests, all of these priorities for your thoughts on long-term housing were checked off because they're interests in ours, we could go through all of them from 1 to 10, but the top 3 we've highlighted as affordable, young family housing, and sustainable, meaning more energy efficient. And thankfully, these also line up with the 3 tenets that we must achieve in our project of affordability, energy efficiency, and accessibility. These are the financing and funding requirements that CMHC, who is a key partner in making this housing project happen, we have to meet base targets in all 3 of those categories, which matches the priorities for people's thoughts on what this housing needs, what this community thinks we need for housing. Next question, next slide, please, which is also the next question. I have to admit, we said select 2 of your top concerns about the potential impacts for long-term housing. Let's just clear the slate and say these are all concerns that people have about the impact of a project such as ours. The highlights being parking, the impact on the neighborhood, and the population impact on local services. All of the others, traffic, view, electricity, flood risk, these are all topics that we have addressed continuously with the town in our reports and their requests for our the impact on our project. We have supplied third-party engineering consultant reports to the town quantifying the impact on the site and the servicing. And regarding the impact on neighborhood and the population impact responses, if 86% of the respondents state that we need housing, 86% will hopefully realize that new housing will have some effect in the immediate area. Next slide, please. So our requests, as Paul has highlighted, are 2, specific to the lands that are known as the parking lot. But in fact, they are 2 separate properties. And our 2 requests is why we are going through this public process. We have a form zone request. The form zone is shown in the number 1 is only particular to the front lot. The form zone, while we meet the height requirements that the front form zone dictates, we are asking for a variance on the setback requirements that are tied to that front lot while we meet it on the rear. So there is a setback change and a lot coverage change is the specific form zone request. The use zone request is the one that Paul also referred to, which is allowing housing on the main floor of a unit. Currently, there is a, within our mixed use zone that both lots are in, there's a statement that says the first 50 feet of any main floor building has to be commercial. Now you can consider maybe Lincoln Street that in an unoccupied space, if any of those buildings became residential, that would forever change the commercial aspect of Lincoln Street. Applying this commercial requirement to this part of town, we feel is a lesser priority than getting housing in a very well-established, occupied location, well-serviced location, central location in town. So we're asking for removal of that requirement. It doesn't say that it can't have commercial. It's just saying that it will allow residential. Next slide, please. These are all, the next two slides are available on the town's bylaws site, but you may be surprised that this is, well, that every property in the town of Lunenburg has two types of uses, or two sets of considerations. The form, what you can physically build in terms of the shape and how much property it sits on, its setbacks and its lot coverage, and its use. So you can see in the red circled area, we actually have for our one project, two different sets of form requirements. So our request again is to change the front lot to allow the setbacks only, a change in form. Next slide, please. And to follow that up on use, you can see how we are surrounded by different uses. We currently are in a mixed use commercial zone. We're requesting it to go to general commercial. And while we appreciate the intent behind the mixed use zoning, this would affect the project's viability as a affordable housing project. Next slide, please. There's also been a fair amount of confusion and misinformation about our project compared to what is allowed as of right. If you're a property owner with those form and use allowances, envelopes that you can work within, everyone's allowed to work, if they can work within them, to build a project. That's what the bylaws are set up to do. In our case, what we are allowed to do as of right, in my opinion, is a bigger, worse project. And in stating that if we are required to have a main floor commercial usage, we will not qualify for CMHC funding to allow affordable units. So affordable apartments are not possible within that inclusion of main floor commercial space. The rear lot has a much bigger footprint that's allowable. The front lot would not have accessible units on their second and third floor because we would have a 3-story building where installing an elevator just for that second and third floor is not viable. So all of a sudden we don't have fully accessible units, all 50. It would just be for the 30 at the rear. So we go from a bigger building that has commercial space with 38 units, but only 30 being accessible, or as of right, without involving the public. That is something that we are allowed to do. But we're approaching the community today in the planning department for our 50-unit housing project on a more efficient footprint, making this eligible for CMHC funding. And it will have 0 square feet of commercial space. The dotted outline on the left is what we're allowed to do as of right, what we're proposing to do on the left, I'm sorry. And what we're proposing to is on the right. Next slide, please. How am I doing? 5 minutes. Perfect. This is going to be a little bit more technical, and I'm going to go through it just by footprint to show you the 2 orange boxes, which are the allowable, to the dashed gray box, which is what is proposed. If that helps to show what impact this project will have, it's less lot coverage, less building area. And the requirements that we're meeting in terms of the highlighted boxes you can refer to will have this slide available. Next, please. In terms of the use, the same thing is that we are highlighting the fact that there's been 2 conversations about use that I want to cover. The mixed-use commercial current definitions allow for housing, but as I've stated, none on the first 50 feet setback of the main level. This is our only request on use. It should be pointed out that our use zone, which is marine industrial, our use zone, marine industrial activities are not allowed. We are not a working waterfront zoned property. We are adjacent to, but we are not. We are completely supportive of and want the young, talented people who need housing working on the waterfront to be able to live in this housing project. But this property does not currently even allow for that activity to occur. So we're supportive, and we, as I said, mentioned to or hope to house some of these workers. Again, these slides are available through the planning office, but also the charts available for what is allowed and what's not allowed in the bylaws. So next project, next slide. This is a summary. I think most of you have seen what the project looks like. I just want to reiterate that what we have completed is our request by the town to provide early reports on all of the servicing. There's been concern about traffic, electricity supply, remediation, stormwater. All of those preliminary reports are in the hands of the town. And we can go to the next slide, please. We've also been asked about the project itself in terms of how many units that we'll have, exactly how many units, what's the layout, what do they look like, what the amenities will be. At this point, the design is timed and not, misspent time on laying out kitchens. We can say that we are going to have a variety of units from bachelors to 3 bedrooms, depending on that market mix. And that to qualify for this as the CMHC project means that 30% of the units will need to meet the affordability requirement, which is about 16 of our 50 units, and that they will need to be 20% below the market rate. And those market rates are soon to be issued by CMHC. We're waiting for that study so that we can soon answer what the rents will be, both for the affordable units and the market units. We are also required to ensure, and we sign an affordability agreement, that these affordable units will be available and tied to those rents for a minimum of 10 years, which is our commitment to making sure that this remains an affordable housing project. So those are the floor plans preliminarily for the main, second and third, and then you'll see the fourth, fifth, and sixth, which rises up on the rear part of the lot. Next slide, please. I won't go through the amenities here because I think you will hopefully know what the amenities can be like in a multi-unit building that you might not have in your own house in terms of common rooms, activity rooms, yoga, gym, storage units, an elevator. These are all things that we've planned for at Falcon and Brook. Next slide, please. In terms of the view plane, we have Falcon and Brook modeled to the left there, which is set back, and quite clearly we're showing that there are properties between us and the waterfront. We are not a waterfront property. The working waterfront lands are between us and the waterfront, and we're also prepared for that activity to be adjacent to this housing unit. This is the vibrant activity of Plant One. We really hope to see that all of that activity grow. Next slide, please. We have worked continuously on parking. We spent time to improve it as much as possible to balance housing units with parking spots. It's one or the other. The properties that we own are only so large, and we're balancing that ratio. And we're knowing that there's interest in the community and not the full, that a lot of our tenants may not have a car, like that newly arrived family, like those people saving up, because this is such a central location and a walkable location. We will have a dedicated car share vehicle for the residents, and that will provide affordable car access to all tenants and can be accounted for, as we've shown, the equivalent of 10 parking spots.
Ms. Corson, you're at 20 minutes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. It just, if you can leave it on the last slide, please. In fact, I'm perfectly wrapped up. Thank you for that. What is here are just some of the comments that we heard in the survey. And I really look forward to the discussion and hearing more input tonight. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Corson. So now we're going to move into the public participation portion of this. So when you do come up, you will be given 5 minutes to address any items, points, or questions or situations you would like. What we would ask is that you pull the mic close to you. There's a press button when it goes red. You know your mic is active and you'll have 5 minutes from that point. So our first member up is Heather Smith. And please note, staff will be taking notes as we go through this. So right here. Yep. So if you want to hit the button there, your mic will go red and your time starts now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Smith. I live at 27 Green Street. My family has lived there for 127 years. I am the 4th generation of my family to live in that house. My children are the 5th. I want to start by defining what this discussion is about or making sure we're all clear. This is not about affordable housing, and this is not even about housing. And I'm sure you're going to hear many compelling stories about people who require housing, and housing is a right, and there's no dispute about that. However, this is about rezoning. This is what we're here to discuss. Ms. Corson has said she can build now. She could have built now on the properties that she has bought, purchased, her company has purchased, and they were zoned a certain way. There's commercial space on the ground floor, and she could have built housing there, and she could have built affordable housing there. What she could not do is access CMHC funds to build that housing, but there could be a doctor's office in that commercial space, childcare, flower shop, thrift shop, for example. So really, this rezoning proposal is about money. It's about provincial and federal funding from CMHC that Solterre would like to get to build on this property. That is their problem and their issue. And I would like to plead to staff and council not to make it our problem. I am sympathetic and I hope that a solution can be found, but this is not Lunenburg's problem to bear. The parameters on how much housing is needed in Lunenburg is actually not all that well defined. Solterre, Ms. Corson has quoted the Town of Lunenburg Municipal Housing Needs Report. Of the people surveyed, there were 40 respondents. In 2022, they did say, this report came out and said that there was a shortfall of 65 housing units. However, there's also upwards of 52 units mentioned in this report that are probably short-term rentals. And of the 1,242 dwellings in Lunenburg, 13% of them, or 161, are not occupied. So I would suggest that Lunenburg probably has an occupancy problem even more than we have a housing problem, and perhaps council should look at some innovative solutions to address that. There's also, before we consider rezoning, there's a big lack of detail in this proposal. How many units exactly is it going to be? If they're 3-bedroom units, if they're mostly 3-bedroom units, I did some rough calculations, and that could be over 200 people in that quite small area. What's the rent going to be? How can we talk about affordable housing without talking about the rent? Ms. Corson has mentioned workers at Harborview Haven, but they have a collective agreement and they make at least $43,000 a year, which is, from anything I have seen or evidence or in any reports, wouldn't qualify someone for affordable housing. So what are the rents going to be? What's going to happen when that 10-year period is over? It sounds like this is a short-term solution to what is a long-term problem facing our nation. But the big problem with this, the Achilles heel of this rezoning proposal is the parking. I saw the figures. In Solterre's proposal, they're saying that there are 29 units on their lot, 11 that are on Brook Street, and one that equals 10 because it's going to be a car share. Firstly, of the units that are on the lot, there are already businesses on that lot where there are staff and there are customers. Most days I go by there and I count 20 cars, and other people have said similar numbers. Okay. The 11 on Brook Street, that's street parking. That's not available at winter, at nighttime, or during storms. And one does not equal 10. While I support car shares, I support walking, I think it's optimism. Hoping for the best is not good municipal strategy. I'll leave you with this. Council's own policy, our own policy states in 619 criteria C9, Council shall not amend the land use bylaw or enter into a development agreement unless they are satisfied the proposal does not allow the creation of excess traffic hazards or congestion. It is very clear that this element of policy is not met, and this area should not be rezoned. I just will leave you with these things. Here's a picture of Victoria Park. It looks very inviting. It looks very lovely. This is what it looks like on a busy day with traffic. This is not what we want for our children, and this is not what we want for our neighborhoods. Please do not rezone this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Darcy.
Next speaker, Irma Dassey. Hello, Irma.
It's like a Senate hearing or something.
So,
Um,
yeah,
Yeah.
are you ready?
No.
Take your time.
Okay.
Your time starts now.
My name is Irma Dassey, and I've worked as an architect for over 40 years. And I'm here to express my strong objection to this development proposal as it's presented here tonight. While residential use may be permitted on these properties, applying the Marine Form Zone's 63-foot height allowance to a residential apartment building is inconsistent with the intent of the municipal planning strategy, and for that reason must be rejected. We all need to understand the most important point. The planning strategy, the municipal planning strategy, and the land use bylaw are both legal documents, but are not equal in authority. The planning strategy sets the policy direction for all development, while the land use bylaw serves only to implement that intent, for example, by specifying height, shape, usage, and form, among other technical requirements. The land use bylaw must conform to the municipal planning strategy. It cannot override or contradict it. Under the Municipal Government Act, and I quote, "A municipality shall not act in a manner that is inconsistent with a municipal planning strategy." So that means that the municipal planning strategy takes precedent over the land use bylaw. Council must act consistently with the MPS, aligning all its decisions and bylaws with its stated policies. So when there is any uncertainty or conflict between the two, the planning strategy governs always. So what the MPS actually says, and I quote, "The Marine Form Zone is intended to maintain the distinct character of a working waterfront with its fishing, shipbuilding, and interpretive tourism operations," unquote. That wording makes the intent very clear. The Marine Form Zone was never intended to regulate residential buildings. It was meant to preserve the working character of the waterfront, our heritage as a working port. Applying the Marine Form's generous height permissions to a 6-story apartment building is a misinterpretation of that intent. Across the rest of the town center, every residential area is limited to 3 stories, with the exception of some outlying areas. And that's not arbitrary. It reflects the planning strategy's commitment to preserving Lunenburg's traditional scale and character. So to allow a 6-story apartment building here solely because part of the property falls within the marine form zone would create a serious and indefensible precedent for future development. It would undermine the integrity of the MPS and public confidence in how it's being applied. So yes, residential use is allowed, but the form and height must still align with the intent of the MPS. The 63-foot height limit was written to accommodate the scale of marine-related buildings, boat sheds, industrial structures, waterfront operations, not residential apartments. Applying it to a private apartment building not only misuses the form zone, it disregards the town's own planning principles. For these reasons, I urge council and staff to acknowledge that this development is not at all as of right. A 63-foot residential building in this location does not conform to the MPS and therefore cannot be lawfully approved under the marine form zone. It's interesting to note that if council were to act contrary to its own municipal planning strategy, that decision would be vulnerable to appeal by the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board for being beyond its legal authority under the MGA. So I do want to be clear, sorry. I do want to be clear that I support the residential development on this site. I truly believe there is enormous potential for a project that could benefit our community and address the issue of housing. But we need to respect the scale of the surroundings and remain sensitive to the people who live near here. A 3-story building is entirely achievable, both from a design perspective that would fit nicely into the neighborhood and an economic standpoint if done thoughtfully and strategically. There's a genuine opportunity here for Ms. Corson and the town to work together to create a project that the community can take pride in, rather than something that becomes a source of division. Thank you.
Could I ask Sheila Allen to come to front?
Hi. We haven't met before.
Oh,
Um,
nice to meet you.
So I did not understand when I signed in that I was speaking, but I'd like to speak. I am too a longtime resident of the town, 7th generation, if we're going to play that game. And I'd just like to say that I am so thrilled by the concept of what is being put forward here. We have for a long time feared change here. Every time, I feel like every time, so, you know, I've been aware of what's going on in town over the years, and I've watched over and over as each time something is being proposed, we get scared. There seems to be something about change that scares people. I don't question people's reasons for opposing. There are always reasons, and they're very personal. And I hear the tone in people's voices. I see the tone in the comments online. The fact that this has been fought out online really troubles me as well. I believe that we have a town, we have a council, we have people in planning and other committees who are trained to take on this kind of responsibility. And I believe we need to trust people to do the right thing for our town. Everybody still gets to have an opinion, and those opinions are valid because they're your own. But if they're based on something beyond what is for the greater good of the community, I believe we have to question that. If there's personal motivations, if there's, you know, we just don't like something, or we, you know, that to me is a place we need to slow down and second think what we're opposing or supporting. In my case, I look around and I think, wow, this could be such a beautiful addition to that end of town. We've looked at the harbor over the years, and we've looked at the ability to put in marinas, or we've talked marina in that area years ago. We talked about, you know, developing along other parts. I go back to you know, the visions of people like Lawrence Moweni, who saw a vision of an area that we could walk from one side of the harbor to the other. That's pretty much complete. You can almost do that. This development would pretty much complete that. There's the concept, I understand, of a walk-through area where we used to go through as kids and not be supposed to be in that area. Is now going to be a place that kids can safely walk through to go to school and walk, or walkers with their dogs like me out every day. There's different aspects of this that are beautiful in terms of how community development can be done. I'm not saying we should ever deny anything that is not safe, not within bylaws, not within health and safety, all those things. I don't know any of that aspect of it because that's not my knowledge base. My knowledge base is community, what this community has been like in the past and what it needs to be in the future. If we had stuck with what the past was, we'd be somewhere like Canso, where there has been no forward moving. We are now in this position, we are in an enviable position as a community because we had forethought and we looked at possibility. And we need to keep looking at possibility and not cut up our noses to spite our face. And I think that happens way too often with more than just one project in this town. There's been many. It's like there's a level of fear comes up in people about change. If we keep being scared, we are not going to be able to move forward as a community. We are a tiny community living like a small city right now. It's a beautiful thing, but can we keep doing it without development? That's my question. Can we? And I think development needs to be done right, but we need to be as positive as possible about development because we need this. And I look forward to maybe being one of those tenants one day. I'm currently at Malagash Terrace, beautiful building, but maybe I want to have my own little unit one day. And this would make that possible for me. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Apologies, we're trying to read handwriting here, always fun. Terry Breeze, if we're, or we're saying,
36 Solterre Road.
oh,
It's here this week, but I'm not here to speak today.
okay, thank you very much.
So Will Brooks.
Will Brooks,
Clearly, I'm not prepared to speak today either.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to Ellen Morrissey.
So Ellen Morrissey. Thank you.
Okay, John
John Ferguson? Or,
from 47 Broad.
okay, thank you,
Okay, Judith Dunford.
thank you,
Kathy Bradford.
thank you,
Jim, who I'm assuming lives with Kathy.
okay, thank you,
Elaine Steele.
just for the record, Elaine Steele, thank you, and thank you for
Hi.
joining us tonight.
you.
And are you, let me know when you're ready and
Sure,
you all set?
sure.
Go ahead.
Like many others, I did not come prepared to speak. But now that I'm here, I'll just say that I came tonight because I knew very little about the proposed development and I wanted to learn more. Having learned a few things tonight, I would have to say that I cannot support this development as it stands. Yeah, and that's about all I want to say. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your comments.
David Steele.
David Steele?
So,
Perfect. Whenever you're ready, David,
all right.
go ahead.
I have a lot of concerns about this development that doesn't, the appeal to me doesn't,
Can you just speak more to the
Sure.
mic? Thank you.
the appeal to me does not seem to be conducive with the neighborhood. It's 63 feet. It's about 3 times the height of the adjacent building that's existing right now. So that, to me, that's, you know, it'll just look at a place. The zoning, the marine zoning, I think is probably originally designed to fit the blue nose in there. to build a boat shed, something to that effect. So I can see the reason for the zoning change. I'm wondering why there isn't a site-specific zoning for this property. In other communities, I've seen developments where the needs of the community, the wants of the community, and the wants of the developer have been brought together with a unique zoning to that property. In this case, I think having underbuilding or underground parking, to me, is, if you want to talk about moving into the new age, that's the type of construction that goes on in cities, like in Halifax or other bigger cities, new development, that's what happens. Having surface parking is really archaic and a waste of land. And having it under the building or in a better location, maybe they can buy some land. They own land all around that area. Between that, I believe the developer owns 7 parcels. Maybe they can contribute one of those parcels as a stacked parking lot or something like that. With another thing that they do in cities where they're concerned about vehicles, or they're concerned about density. To me, it's something that appears to be pushed upon us and is not conducive with the neighborhood at all. And the CMHC thing, that's developer's problem. It's not our problem. That's the type of development they want to go. They can certainly provide non-market housing if they desire to do that without CMHC financing. They could do it with the development agreement between the town and the developer, where you might insist upon that in a new zoning, a site-specific zoning where you can demand that. There's a number of ways to get around that, but my main concern is the 63 feet height, the block look of the building. It doesn't match the neighborhood, and parking is a real issue there. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
It's weirder sitting this way than it is the other way.
And could you say your name for the record, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fawn Creaser and I live at 22 Yonge Street. Yonge Street is very closely adjacent to the property we were all here to talk about. So yes, well within earshot of the construction hum and general use of a multi-unit residential building if this were to proceed. Before COVID and Project Lunenburg, I was asked to join a group of seniors that were concerned about their housing. They did a lot of research about the need for housing and who needed housing. Very quickly, they realized that to keep Lunenburg vibrant, we need housing for all, and that it would take the will of all of us for that to succeed. Project Lunenburg then happened. I was in the room when the consultants asked participants to rate the needs of Lunenburg. They themselves, the consultants, put housing as number, it was 7, 8, or 9 of the top 10 issues. By overwhelming majority, participants asked to place it at number 1. Following that, and because of that, the town looked at ways of helping to create more housing. They were doing their job. Whether we agree or disagree with how all that rolled out, that push now affords us with the opportunity to have a broader range of proposals to consider in meeting that need. Then COVID forced higher housing costs along with an influx of people, especially here in Lunenburg, because it's such a great place, absorbing most of our available housing then. The big demand is easing somewhat, but is still there, which brings us to this particular project. As much as I feel we need to keep this community strong beyond this year, next year, and 20 years from now, I too struggle with some aspects of the proposal. Part of that is the height and the scale for residential housing. I'm forever going on about scale. So maybe a floor less or something.
I do wonder what the final rendition of this will look like, how much it does, as everyone says, fit in. I'm a big supporter of the working waterfront, including the new marina. Are we honoring the intent of all of that? Or is it time for it to look different? While I do struggle with a few aspects of this proposal, overall, I do believe that it is wonderful for this town to be here talking about the possibility of more housing with someone who is actually willing to create homes for us. This opportunity does need to take some responsibility, or this community, sorry, does need to take some responsibility, all of us, to help keep that same all of us here as our housing needs change, whether we age or physically if we need it, and to be welcoming to those that move here to help keep us strong and vibrant. We will need that support for our infrastructure needs over time, to maintain all our heritage properties that we rely on for so much versus selling them, and to keep our businesses healthy. That takes a certain quantity. I'm on the town's heritage committee, so obviously the spirit of this place is important to me. Not just to maintain what we have, but in how we form what will then become our ongoing heritage. What I would like to see is leadership from council, from all of you. I know you've already done a lot of it. The developer has stepped up. I know you have. But it is a first big project, and I guess what I'm asking is, can we keep at that to identify some of the issues and work with them so that this could move forward? What still can be negotiated between the extremes of yes and no that we hear today, so that we can behave like the responsible community we've always been. Thanks.
Thank you, Vaughn. Teresa Quilty? Teresa. You all set?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Teresa Quilty. I live at the corner of Brook and McDonald, so just a couple of blocks up from the proposed development. I'd like to say that I'm very much in favor of this project. I was sort of jump off a lot of things that Fawn said about the need for housing in this community, and I've also been part of the planning processes over the last several years, and really appreciate that, you know, as a community, we've worked hard to get a lot of things in place, the policies and the zoning and so on, to allow projects like this to happen. And my understanding is that this project I appreciate that we've got a local architect and developer who is part of this community that I feel has a good track record of doing high quality work. I feel, that I have a lot of trust there, that also with the amendments that have been made, that this project and the proponent is being very sensitive to the, what the community's been saying. So we've seen a lot of responsiveness. So I feel really good about that, and really good about what this project could be for us. As Fawn mentioned and others have mentioned about the need for housing that's been demonstrated in this community. And so we have these rules in place, we have these bylaws in place, and the plan that is asking for this sort of project to happen. And here we have a proponent willing to do that, and has done the hard work to make the numbers work. And my understanding is that it's really that you really can't do affordable housing without CMHC support, and the numbers just aren't going to work. So I think it is, if we want affordable housing, and we've said that we do, then we don't have every option. There are constraints on projects. This is down at the end of my street. I think it would be great. I've actually been really impressed at how small the footprint is. And when we look at the diagrams, you can see how it's going to sit in with everything else down there. I think it will be fine. I think this is something we can do. I think that I think that we can do it. This is as good a proposal, I think, as we could hope to see come to Lunenburg. I've seen us, say no and find lots of reasons again and again for what we don't like about something. But then sometimes projects go through and then we're fine with them. So I think this is really possible. We could make it happen. We could say yes to this project. I think if we don't, I worry, then what? What would we say yes to ever? This project meets all requirements except 2 zoning amendments, which I think are very reasonable. It's not having retail in the main floor and also sort of working the 2 lots together as one to have one continuous building. And I think those are very reasonable amendments that I would really encourage council to approve. And I really hope that we do this project.
Thank you very much. Tom Webb. Hi, Tom, when you're ready.
Hi there. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Some of you may wonder why somebody from Mahone Bay is here talking in Lunenburg about housing. I sit on the board of the Mahone Bay Community Land Cooperative, and we have been working on the housing problem in this region. And it is a region, and the housing problem is not just Lunenburg, it's Mahone Bay and other areas. We have, first of all, let me say that you can't build non-market housing without CMHC. And anybody who thinks that that's possible simply has not tried. Secondly, there are a lot of people who work in our town and work in this town who can't afford to live here. And I think that's sad. They're part of this community in a very real way, except they can't be here. Many seniors live in the area in large houses. They would love to be able to scale down to somewhere that's near services. We're looking at a lot in Mahone Bay where you can walk within 5 minutes to all the services in town. This project is somewhat similar. And so I think that the other thing I would say is that we have worked with Solterre. We have found them very responsible. They listen. They do their best to do the right thing in terms of the environment, in terms of people. And I would hope that Lunenburg will be able to work with Solterre to solve what is a national housing problem that runs from one end of this country to the other. We have at the moment an economy which is simply failing to provide people, many people, with housing. It's also failing to provide them with food. But that's another problem that's outside of this discussion. But thank you very much, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Tom. Graham Eisenhower. Evening, Graham.
Hello. Thanks. So I'm Graham Eisenhower. I'm the president of the company that owns the building next door to this proposed development, most commonly known as the West Nova Fuels office, right across from the tennis courts. I've met with Solterre several times as they've evolved their proposal and thinking for the site. So I appreciate what they're doing and have been up to date as they've evolved as it's come along. I do want to acknowledge it's hard to be first, and this is the first building of this style in the town, certainly since anything at the far end of town. So I acknowledge it's hard, and I congratulate Solterre for their work and their effort to try to be first and leaders in the space. I am a supporter of development. I do believe the town needs more housing. I do believe multi-unit makes sense. Those are my opinions, but I'm pretty firm in those. And I would ask the question of, if we don't allow a building like this here, then where in town will we allow a building like this? I think this is as good a spot as any. It's not right beside an individual dwelling. It's beside commercial buildings. So I think the immediate neighbor of a residential house wouldn't be impacted as it would if it was on the other side of the street, let's say. With respect to the questions going to council, I understand it's about 2 zoning changes. So I think that's what most of the focus is on. Excuse me, I forgot to mention, I do have concern about the parking. I understand that's not the primary conversation tonight, but I do feel the parking is a little bit limited and have shared that opinion with Solterre as neighbors. So with respect to the 2 changes to the zone issue, that being the lot coverage in the front zone and the ability to put residential on the main floor, I think the lot coverage, in my opinion, is a pretty easy one, and I think it makes sense to allow that change. I think what they've proposed is a better looking building than what, at least in theory, they could build in the as of right option that they have. And quite frankly, having it all one building as opposed to 2 separate means the whole thing is accessible via elevator. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. With respect to the main floor residential, I'm supportive of that. I think this building is going to be a residential building, whether it has commercial on the main floor or not. The feel of the area, the building will be residential, so I see no harm in adding residential on the main floor as well. So that addresses the 2 concerns that are going before council, and those are my opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Oliver Osman. He left. Okay, thank you. Catherine McCarron.
Hi, I'll be brief because much of what I said has already, or what I have to say has already been said, but I am a renter. I've been in Nova Scotia 16 years, half the time in Lunenburg, half in Mahone Bay, because I can speak to the very real shortage of appropriate housing. Not only Lunenburg, Mahone Bay, the whole area, the whole South Shore. So I'm in favor of anything that will increase the housing supply. I'm also involved with the Mahone Bay Land Cooperative. We're trying to get non-market housing going. And I understand the parameters that are put around getting funding from CMHC. These variances that are being requested, I think, will enable this project to go ahead with CMHC funding. And for any, it's a responsibility that our country has taken on. The reason that there is funding from CMHC is because we as a country recognize that we need housing and that money has to be coming from government, that private developers are not equipped to, they can't. The cost of land, the cost of materials, the cost of building, construction, you're not going to come up with affordable housing. You need to have that federal tax money. And it's a responsibility that we all have to provide housing, to make sure that our neighbors have a decent, safe place to live. So I'm in favor of this project. I think it's nicely designed. I think it's a good location. I think it will enhance the town, and maybe I can live there one day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joel Weston. Hey, Joel.
Hi, I'm Joel Weston. I'm a resident of the town of Lunenburg. I'm living up on Harborview Drive, so quite a distance away from this development in itself, but I still have some opinions I'd like to share. And they stem more from being in development myself and having seen some of the projects that have happened or almost have happened in the town since I've moved back. And I don't know how many know, but there is a piece of land for sale on Hall Street that was intended for a development, 86 units, which did not have parking for more than a third of those, and that would have spilled out on that site. That was out of right, as of right, and did not require any approval process or PPM process. So I think that's That's one thing to consider. We also have the Salt Meadows, where we just did some rezoning. There has been a developer there that has put units on some of the lots in that area. And one could have opinions on how well performed that development is and how suitable it is for that location. So what I want to say is that there's a big range of developers. They don't come in all the same form. And I think with Jennifer Corson and Solterre, we have a very responsible developer, someone that has knowledge in this field from a long time, takes a social responsibility, cares about heritage, throw herself behind any charitable project that we have, including lending her skills to the We Feed Lunenburg project by the water market. So in that sense, I just want to make that clear that I think that as far as developers go, we have one of the very best working on this project and have dedicated 1.5 years on trying to move forward together with town, and as I heard now, also with neighbors, which only makes sense because it is the responsible approach. I also think that many perhaps don't understand the full bulk that you have to go through. Jennifer only had the 20 minutes to talk about it, but engineering studies that have been done, the back and forth with town, of course, and staff working on this. It's not something that's just hatched, fall off a truck. It's something that knowledgeable people have spent considerable time working back and forth to try and come up with the best solution possible. I think that's worth knowing. I also am the chair for the building committee for the Housing Trust of Nova Scotia, and we try to build affordable buildings all around Nova Scotia. And we have converted the Wheelhouse Motel to 16 units for healthcare workers. And one of the problems that we have, of course, is making things affordable. CMHC puts that at 30%. Was a mention here of people making 42,000. Well, if you take the 42,000, you take the 30% on that, you split it over 12 months, that only puts it at $1,000 that you can afford if you're only going to pay 30% of your rent. And we do definitely need more of that affordable housing in this town. As far as CMHC goes, yes, it was said it's hard to do a building development without the support of CMHC. Why is that? Well, it's because it's so expensive to do development. And I would rather make this argument. If the federal government is making money available for housing throughout the country, why would we not want developers to dip into that money to use it in our community? Why should it go to other communities and ours be passed over? Okay, we also know that town council is working on policies to get access to the accelerator fund, which is also money that comes out of the same CMHC money federally. So we do want that money to be invested in our community. I guess with the time allotted, that's what I'd like to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. County Anderson? Annie?
So am I directing my comments to you or to
Your
council?
Well, they will go to council, but we're collecting and retaining that information for them.
Okay. Townie Anderson, 55 Townsend Street. I feel I'm in a bit of an awkward position here because I'm a longtime proponent of waterfront redevelopment and downtown redevelopment, rehabilitation. So I think what Irma Desai said is probably the most important thing said tonight, and that is the policy. I can't cite the number, but in the MPS that no amendment shall be made where the use is inconsistent with what the MPS says. And the the other thing is, I was at the PAC meeting and Rachel Martin said something also very important. And if history is any indication, it's happened too many times before. And that is that this is the first out of the box of a fairly large set of parcels that have changed hands. And it is already asking for amendments, which suggests that either the zoning was poorly conceived, the use and form, but it does open a Pandora's box. And the going back, I've spent several hours with the zoning maps, the use and the form, and the tables. And these two parcels are an anomaly. I mean, it's everything around it is form and use is marine. What did people intend? What did the planners intend when they created that name for a use and a form? And I don't think they intended a 6-story condominium building, residential. I strongly urge you to just not do anything until you've had a chance to revisit and discuss the intents, what's inconsistent, and proof them out. What are the scenarios that could happen? I don't think anybody did that. And once you if you approve this, and knowing the development that's going to come, the pressures on this community, it's you're going to be hanging on for dear life. So it's not the right time to make those amendments. And this one, you may have to let go in terms of use of right, but use by right. But those documents need to be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. So ladies and gentlemen, that completes our list of registered speakers. I will now open the floor to anyone else that hasn't had a chance to speak or would like to have comments added to the record. You may come, who would like to come to the floor now? Just please state your name into the microphone and we'll give you your 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Angela Rauer. I live up on Dufferin Street. I'm not prepared for this, so I'm just speaking from the heart. I think one of my main concerns is that this building will be 6 stories and it's not in keeping with the look of the town. And I encourage everybody here, if you go to Cookville by the Canadian Tire and look at any of those new buildings and see what a 6-story building looks like, it's far too large for a town like Lunenburg. And not to mention that, of course, the parking, there's not enough parking. And it's easy to say it's very walkable, but I think, again, I don't have any research to back myself up on this, but I'm sure everybody drives to Bridgewater, to the Western Shore, to Chester, wherever. People are owning cars and they are driving. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the call out again. Any further comments from the public? One last call. Any further comments from the public? Okay. At this time, I'll turn it to Jennifer Corson for any final comment, if you'd like to make any on record.
Thank you for that. I've made a few notes, and some of our Solterre crew here also have some notes, of which first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to everybody here. We know that this is a test of our conviction to build affordable housing in this town. We know that there will always be a what if, or can it be different, or, why? We have been working at this for a year and a half with the town. If many of you were at the beginning, this was a 6-story project across the board. Our neighbors to the left and behind us have a 6-story as of right already. This is something that if we blink our eyes in 20 years, we may in fact see other developments as of right fitting that existing zone. Whether the town and the council are going to be looking at various pieces that were changed under previous councils, that may be coming. The conviction and the consistent need, though, is housing, and how are we going to get it? Yes, CMHC has to be involved. It is expensive to build new housing. We need affordable units, and this is the way that we need it to happen. I made a few notes about how I might respond to particular comments, but I think what I'll just say is that we are open to receiving emails. My website and the email and our office address is there. We're actually physically located in the original Foundry office building, which we are restoring. We have restored the existing buildings on the site. There's very little available additional site for parking, but we're squeezing lots in as much as we can to, in fact, work within the means that we have for parking. So I'll just basically say that we are available for any questions or concerns. I always want to make myself available to community for that, whether it's via the planning office or to myself directly. But I really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Corson. So at this time, we're going to finish up with the meeting. I first want to repeat that if you still have comments and you would like to make them, you can still provide them in written form, whether email or dropped off at Town Hall. We're still accepting. Our goal is to work on a report, hopefully for October 28th for council, so we can start that discussion with them as well. I also want to thank you tonight, folks. Understanding that there's been previous PPMs and situations where it's gotten rowdy. I can sincerely thank you for your commitment to holding decorum as well as participating in these sessions. And these are the types of sessions we're going to move forward with in this format. So everyone, again, has a fair and equal opportunity to provide feedback to council. And I can attest that council is going to be very appreciative of this. So right now it's 7:23 p.m. unless there's anything else. Sound? Mark, when would you like comments in by?
Gosh,
Next Wednesday?
that sounds good.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Or next week,
Tuesday,
sorry.
Tuesday, sorry.
Okay.
Next.
So when is that? Sorry, I'm looking at my calendar here.
But we should also talk about next steps.
Yep. So go ahead.
Just following up, this is an early start to the public participation process. So the whole point of this is that nothing has really gone forward to council for a decision. So how this works is there's first and second reading of these amendments. So after tonight, gathering all this feedback, the intent is a report will come back to council recommending a first reading to proceed with moving this forward. It'll be up to council to consider that report, take a look at all the input that was provided tonight and any additional input that was provided. And based there, council can make their decision if they want to choose to give first reading. After first reading, it'll have to go to second reading, and we're legislatively mandated to hold another public hearing. So it's a little bit more formal. You'll have another opportunity. So it's another public input session, essentially, before second and final reading. So as the project goes forward and council gives acknowledgement that it's proceeding, you have another opportunity, and that'll be advertised on our website and our social media pages. So take a look for that. That'll come forward likely in November if council so chooses. So this isn't the last time if you still have other thoughts as it moves forward.
Hold on. So the deadline, if you want to have submissions by hopefully our reports to council by the 28th, your submission deadline for written at this point is October 21st. We'll make a posting out on that, yes. Any further questions from the public? If not, thank you very much and safe drive home, folks.